Hello and welcome once again to Speakeasy with Paul F. Tompkins. I am still Paul F. Tompkins, and my guest this time is an actor who has been acting for just about as long as he has been alive. You will recognize him from 1 Million Things. Currently, he can be seen on the Amazon series Alpha House. Please say hello to Haley Joel Osment. Haley, hello, how are you?
Good, man. Nice
Cheers.
to see you.
Thank you very much for being here. It's delightful, refreshing ginger beer.
Ginger beer, the best.
Very underrated.
It is.
Ginger-based beverages, underrated.
Definitely.
Colas get all the press.
They do.
But ginger's always there for you.
Nice and light.
You've been acting since you were a tiny child.
It's true.
4 years old? Was that your first audition?
Yes, 4 years old. I did a Bigfoot Pizza Hut commercial for Pizza Hut just after a sort of cattle call deal that I walked into in an IKEA in Burbank. And then just by chance, the casting agents for Forrest Gump saw that commercial, and that ended up being my first film, and it just sort of went from there. So yeah, it's been about 20 years now.
Yeah, an auspicious debut.
Yeah.
Do you have memories of that time of wanting to be an actor?
I mean, when you're a kid that small, your time horizon isn't so long, yeah. So I enjoyed it when I was doing it. I mean, during Forrest Gump, I remember learning to tie my shoes, so that was sort of the big events in my life that weren't on screen at the time. But yeah, I mean, my parents were great in that, you know, it was always just, you know, if you want to do this, we'll make it happen, you know, and well, you know, as long as you keep up on your schoolwork and everything. But at no point did I feel pressured to do it or anything like that. And then once I started getting older and having all these opportunities, it really became clear to me that that was what I wanted to do most in the world. Yeah.
So it was a thing that you kind of ended up in, for lack of a better term,
yeah.
About a better way to phrase it, and then you sort of realized, oh, I'm good at this and I enjoy this.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you came to that realization, like when it kind of hit, like, oh, this is a thing that I'm in control of doing, and this is my choice to do this?
You know, one of the first, I did a few films when I was a really small child, and then after that I did a few sitcoms. I did a show with Jeff Foxworthy, and then I was on the final 2 seasons of Murphy Brown. And being, you know, in that sort of heyday of multi-camera sitcom, the schedule was really consistent. So with movies, you're taken out of your life, and you go to Beaufort, South Carolina, or Dallas, Texas, or something for a couple months, and it's this whole different thing. With television, I would, you know, go 10 minutes from my house. We'd, you know, rehearse Wednesday, Thursday, do a read on Friday, and then shoot on Monday and Tuesday. And I was able to go to school, you know, 1 week out of every month. So it got to be this thing where I was like, it didn't feel like a strange vacation or something. It actually felt like a job at that age. And there are very strict laws in California about doing 3 hours of school a day and all of that. So I think that was the earliest realization that it was something that I could do as a part of my life, and not just as a strange sort of thing. And then when some of these film opportunities came up, and I sort of started having the first sort of artistic connection to what I was doing, that then it really sort of became like, oh wow, I have to think far ahead in the future and see if this is really what I want to do.
Yeah. I saw you on the stage years ago in that revival of American Buffalo.
Oh, really?
In New York.
Oh, cool.
Yes. And I had I didn't know who the cast was. I had no idea, and it was such an eclectic mix of people.
Yeah.
That I was like, wait, who is in this? It was you, John Leguizamo, and Cedric the Entertainer.
That was the three of us. Yeah.
And it was a short run, but was that your Broadway debut?
Yes, it was.
And
yeah.
that must have been thrilling, right?
I mean, and to be going to college for theater and to have that opportunity in the middle was just extraordinary. Yeah, we had a short run, and you know, it was. I think we premiered on the day of the financial crisis, and you know, and you know, there were whatever issues with the show, but the experience of doing that and working with those two guys and being up on that stage, yeah, it really stoked a hunger, and doing theater is one thing I really love to do.
And I mean, that was not your first play.
No, I mean, I did stuff in, you know, non-professional stuff in high school and college, but that was the first big one. And then I did right after that, I did the play Red in a revival in Philadelphia, which is that great play about Mark Rothko.
Yeah.
So it really trains you as an actor. You know, sometimes people ask how you memorize so much text, and if you do a couple plays, then it doesn't seem so hard anymore.
Yeah.
You know, doing that 8 times a week and having big, long scenes of dialogue. Yeah, that's I love doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
So now you're back on TV with a, you know, although it's a single camera show, perhaps a more reliable schedule than filmmaking?
Still, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, with these shows, Alpha House was a little different because we had such a gigantic cast, and it's a new distribution model too. So
Yeah, that's true.
We shot this pilot, and I actually had scenes in the pilot that we later removed once we got a full series order, because my character is sort of a mystery through the first half of the season. But yeah, I mean, just for the medium right now, I think it's an odd moment of transition, you know, between network television and online things. But for actors, it's great because you just have all these new opportunities, you know, and you can really sort of pick your fancy with us.
So the show is about a group of Republican senators who all live, they kind of share this house in D.C.,
Right.
which is an actual thing that
Yes,
happens.
it is, yeah.
And the cast is pretty amazing. In addition to
Yeah.
you, it's John Goodman. Who else is in the cast?
Clark Johnson, Matt Malloy, Mark Consuelos, Cynthia Nixon, Wanda Sykes, Amy Sedaris.
Yeah.
They just going all out with it.
Yeah. And tell me about your character.
My character is a Reno newspaperman named Shelby Melman. Gary Trudeau just has these great sort of semi-assonant names for everybody. But he is an ambitious young guy, and he sort of starts out as an enigma for Matt Malloy's character, who's the Nevada senator, because he thinks that I go with him on this trip to Afghanistan to visit the troops in order to catch him in an embarrassing situation. But it turns out that I may just be ambitious without caring what the story is. So yeah, it's fun because nowadays, I mean, you have so many tools to research characters just through YouTube, you know. So going through and finding nice regional broadcast characters and inspirations on that front is a lot of fun. So, and there's something about the news cadence that is a lot of fun to do, of doing a report for regional news.
Right. Do you really enjoy the research? Is that a big the thing where you kind of nerd out when you're researching?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, and because so much of my work was when I was a kid or a teenager, and there's not a huge variety of types to play at 10. So now that I'm getting a little bit older, and now you're playing somebody who is from a completely different walk of life, you know, then that's a lot of fun. Yeah. I mean, for Red that we were just talking about, we had, our dramaturg gave us this massive Bible of Rothko information and other contemporary painters that were his contemporaries, and that I do enjoy that a lot.
Looking over your resume, I mean, you've done a lot of heavy stuff. You know, even like the big Hollywood stuff has been drama. You know, it's been maybe a while since you've done a comedy like this.
Yeah, and it just, you know, by a great stroke of luck, there's been so much. I mean, it's a great time for comedy in general, but. There were just a lot of great scripts that were comedies this year. And yeah, it's funny for me because I can say at the age of 25, I've been shot, stabbed, had AIDS, had cancer, and in the films that I don't die, usually a parent or both is murdered or dies. So it's been a very dark trip. And Alpha House is satirical, and I think I've already seen things online where they're talking about, you know, a Hollywood show making fun of Republicans, but what I like to think about that show is that all the main characters are Republicans, so it's, you know, you're meant to sympathize with them, and it's not just meant as a hit job on that party. It just happens to be that they're the funnier party right now. I think, as Gary said, the party that's out of power is the one that has to struggle and fight primaries and everything to get back into power, so that gives us a lot of comic material. Right. Yeah.
There's something that you mentioned that this is going to be an odd segue, but speaking of AIDS, there's a very famous and very viral clip of you from Walker, Texas Ranger. Do you remember the exact line?
Walker told me that I had AIDS, I believe, was it? Or I think it was Walker. I think Chuck Norris was the one who broke the news when I had AIDS, and they had a tear. Yeah, that was, because I got a text when Conan did that years ago that said, "Did you see the cat play you off?" Right. I said, what is this? I wasn't aware of the gig, but yeah. And then my good friend gave our valedictory address at our high school and mentioned that in his valedictory address. So that's one thing I'm sure I'll never live down.
I want to talk about Spoils of Babylon on IFC. It's just an insane show that's a sort of soap opera kind of thing. It's just crazy over the top, and it's produced by Will Ferrell and Adam McKay. That's right. Kristen Wiig and Tobey Maguire and yourself. How did you end up getting involved with this?
That was just some great work from my agent and manager, and a completely out of the blue call that they gave me when that happened, saying and they had cast a lot of people when I got that call. So to hear that a project with Will Ferrell, Kristen Wiig, Tobey Maguire, Val Kilmer, and Tim Robbins was happening was almost, I was in the car and almost drove off the road. But yeah, it's just an epic melodrama. It's based on some of those great. Multi-generational dynasty stories from the 70s and 80s. It's about an oil family that, comes from nothing to great wealth and prominence, and then gets involved in political intrigue and violence. And I play a bastard son who is a megalomaniac trying to wrest control of the company from his mother. So it's just great fun.
Had you, I mean, because you were, I think, not even maybe born yet when in the heyday of those shows.
Right, yeah.
Did you research them? Did you check those out?
Yes, yeah. I mean, again, with YouTube, you can, and if all else fails with Hulu, if it's been shot, there's a way to find it,
Yes,
online.
absolutely.
And yeah, it's just terrific. And what was a fun part of this one is that Funny or Die did some EPK from the 70s behind the scenes. So not only did we have characters in this ridiculous melodrama, but we had to come up with characters for the actors who played these characters in the 70s, which was just terrific. Because, the greatest comedy in this one is when, these actors are trying so hard to be sincere. You're totally sincere. I think as Oscar Wilde said, all bad poetry is sincere. And that's what these actors are doing, is they're thinking they're doing the performances of their lifetime, and it's just crap in this crap series. So yeah, we had a lot of fun.
Is it weird to you sometimes to know that you have been acting longer than a lot of people in that cast have?
It's weird because it's the acting as a kid. It's not quite the same as having a career as an adult, but just the span of time and just the difference in how publicity works now, how the internet is such a huge factor, how different that was, and how lucky I was to have been working in a time where there wasn't quite such an industry of celebrity, and there was a greater privacy afforded, just because the internet didn't. I think somebody put online the other day this clip from The West Wing where some piece of information has gotten out, and CJ comes in and goes, "It's on the internet right now," and they're like, "All right, so it'll break after the weekend." Like this idea that the internet was something that would, take a news cycle to get into and not be instant, know, and not know that Michael Jackson died 30 minutes ago.
Right.
And so that's a weird thing for me, because I can remember an industry that was different in a lot of ways.
And in such a relatively short span of time, too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Are there things that you learned when you were on set as a kid that you still use today?
Absolutely, yeah. I just got very lucky to work with a lot of directors and actors who were not only very good at what they did, but were very accommodating and helpful on the set. And
you had access to some of the most amazing people.
Yeah, just tremendous good fortune with that. And from that first film, like I remember being a kid and how obvious Tom Hanks's process was. Someone who was so focused. There was not a moment, I can't remember seeing him just relaxing or shooting the breeze with somebody. He was always had the script in his hand. He was always completely wrapped up in that character. And even though I was probably too young to really interpret that correctly, it made an impression even at that age. So.
And it's also, something like that is very easy, I think, to misinterpret maybe, because as you talked about the instinct that actors have to do something in the correct way, that it's very easy to get into your head that there's only one method of doing things.
Oh yeah.
And that's what you're supposed to do. Well, there's also, it's easy to get into your head because people will tell you that. People will tell you, this is what you do.
Acting is a very weird thing to talk about. And and having gone to a school for acting after working for a lot of time, it was really cool to see that there's a lot of ridiculous things that are happening in acting school, but learning how to talk about it and learning how to critique your own performance and the performances of others is one of the things we spent the most time on, because you have to get past that sort of level of discomfort of talking about something that's so intimate and wrapped up in who you are. And additionally, just with characters and actors that directors and actors that I worked with, is that I think sometimes there's a tendency to try and trick children into giving the right performance, and I never got that. I was always working with directors who would talk about the script and would talk about the character. And my father actually is a theater actor as well, so his presence on the set was, he we were never using games or tricks to do everything. He was someone who treated me with respect when I was a kid, so that was a huge stroke of good fortune too.
So you never had a director that smeared peanut butter on your mouth to make it look like you were
Yeah,
talking?
it looked like the dog is talking.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. If you get this scene right, we're all going to Disneyland.
So doing a show for Amazon, this is Amazon is one of the outlets now that's kind of changing the way television is viewed and consumed. And I'd like to know what you think about that as an artist, and what you think about that as a consumer.
It's just hard to predict where this is going to go. I think that obviously a lot of people want to watch television or whatever you call it now that it's online.
Right.
You know, binging it. Netflix certainly put out House of Cards that way and it was successful. I think Amazon is trying a slightly different formula where we release 3 at once and then one once a week after that. And yeah, it's just, I think everyone's sort of feeling out what's going to be the most, you know, economically profitable model and what people will accept. As an actor, I think it offers great opportunities. You know, selfishly, it just means more shows are being produced. I think Amazon said they got some number in the thousands of pitches from people. So it's yet another place where you can go and bring your idea, which is certainly good.
And compete with thousands of people.
Yeah, and compete with thousands of people. But yeah, that's one of these things these days where one thing that I don't like is that it seems that it's harder to make films. It's harder to get films distributed. Yeah. I don't want to lose the movie house, and I hope that these things don't come at that expense. I really think that people have wide enough taste that there's some films that want to go to the movie theaters. There's some shows that you want to binge. There's some you're going to want to do week by week. So that I hope that whenever we get into new technology like this, when 3D got really big, that it doesn't mean we rip out all the film projectors and go. I mean, even though we probably will just go to digital projection, but that's one thing just for me as an audience member as well as an artist that I think we can sustain all of these things, just in certain different scales.
Right. Haley Joel Osment, a pleasure to chat with you.
Nice
Thank you
talking
very
to
much
man.
for joining us.
Cheers.
Yes, indeed. That's it for this edition of Speakeasy. Please join us again next time, where my guest will be a different person. Do you binge though?
Oh yeah.
You watch it?
I was 3 seasons behind on Breaking Bad, and then had a
3 seasons.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and check back every Monday to see who I interview next. And for more info about Speakeasy, visit mademan.com.